recap, this is going to be the DEQ pretreatment training on how to use the EDD template. It was requested at the last pretreatment subcommittee meeting of Aqua that DEQ do a training on this, as we have some people who have not used the EDD template before. So this training's designed to go over that template, what you should put in that, what we want to see, how we want to get it back, and basically explain the Form 3 of the pretreatment annual report. And we'll just jump right in. So I'm Nicole Morris. I'm the DEQ's pretreatment coordinator. And with me, I have Carter Thomas, the DEQ's data steward. And I'll let Carter Thomas reintroduce and take it away.
Yeah, hey folks. Once again, just want to remind you that we are recording. We'll do Q&A after this, but just be aware that whatever questions you ask may end up being given to a wider audience. My name is Carter Thomas. I'm a data steward for the DEQ laboratory in Hillsborough. I manage a lot of incoming data from a lot of different facilities. So I'm going to go over what we call the EDD template, the electronic data delivery form, and show you how to download it, show you how to use it, maybe some resources if you have questions, and we'll try and make it quick so that we can get to the Q&A session at the end. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So we're going to do our best to make sure that you have this template available to direct link. And of course, once you have it, go ahead and download it and save it to your wherever you may be working. But just in case you don't know where that is, or you lose the link, or you're operating on a different computer, I just wanted to start out that pretty simple Google search will bring you to the right page. So this is the EDD landing page. You'll notice the toxics and copper biotic ligand model monitoring. That's the main project I work with, but that's the same template that we're trying to use for as many projects as possible. So pre-treatment data will go in the same thing with some additions that Nicole will show later. So there's instructions here that are more related to the toxics and copper. Go ahead and just download the data submission template. So you can see I have a couple other versions of it. So here's in my file, and I'm going to open it up there. And here's my landing page. At DEQ, we have to select these labels. Whether your organization does that, I don't know. The landing page here discusses the guide to the tabs along here. Ultimately, you'll be filling out these two blue tabs, the majority of which will even be in the results tab. I will go through them all real quickly just to understand what tools are available. So here are instructions describing the uses and names of the tabs along. And here's a place for you to put in your organization name, contact information. We work with a lot of NPDES permits. If that's not the relevant permit number to you, you can leave that blank or put whatever identifying you want. Same with phone, contact information, and so forth. There's an example of how it's completed here. The next two orange tablets describe the columns that we're going to be filling out when we actually fill out our data. The monitoring location info is pretty straightforward. You're just going to have a short monitoring location ID, hopefully something that's unique, maybe a more descriptive name, XYZ River at Main Street Bridge, Outfall 1 at, blank wastewater treatment plant, so forth. And then a latitude and longitude. We'll use that to load it into our database. Results info, there's more stuff here. And I will go over all of these, but this is a great place that you can come back to if you're confused about filling out a certain column. There's even, examples for the most likely things you're going to be filling out are. So I'm going to come over here and let's say my two monitoring locations are Carter, Outfall 001, and then maybe another location you're doing has a DEQ number that you know. So, and then this is going to be, Carter's Outfall upstream and Carter's I'll fall downstream. I'm just making stuff up as go. Latitude, longitude, and then if you want to do even more descriptions, you can put those in the comment sections here. Now, if you pop over to the yellow tab, we have something similar where you can go to see sort of the same, what it looks like to be filled out. We also have example results right here. And this is sort of the format that you're going to be filling into this blank column, this blank tab here. So it's possible that this data you get comes straight from the lab, like already completely filled out. So, you may get something like this, in which case your job is pretty straightforward. It's just to review that it looks all right and then submit it to us. But, you may be hand entering data. The lab may not get it to you in the exact format that you want. You may have changes you need to make. You may need to be combining stuff. The lab may give you more data than you're supposed to submit and you want to pare it down. So that's sort of more what I'm going over here. So here's just an example, a little bit of data that I'm going to use. I'm going to click and drag to grab it all. Did I make sure that I start at the beginning? I'm going to do Control C, and I'm going to paste it into here. It did not like that. So I'm going to do these one at a time. So for the column A, you can see that the lab has described it to me as just F or effluent. That's obviously not going to be specific enough. So that's the kind of thing where, let's say that this is Carter's outfall 01. So right off the bat, that's a correction you want to make. You then have date and time. We use 24-hour time is what we're looking for sample collection time rather than AM, PM. Time zone and a media type. So there's some examples of different media types in both the example section and in results info. Municipal influent, municipal effluent, municipal wastewater, those are all very common. Surface water, that's very common. The one thing that we'd really like to avoid is, just water or something equally not descriptive. We really want to know, like, is this out of a pipe? Is this off the surface of a water body? Because that allows whoever's using the data to filter it down to make sure we're using the right thing. In this example, it is a sample routine. In general, you won't be submitting too many of like QA, QC blanks, that sort of thing, but would be maybe some alternatives if you are submitting blank data. But for the most part, you're going to be doing sample or sample routine. In this example, it's a composite. So that would be 6 discrete grabs. The other 2 most common are a grab, which is one individual sample, or what we call a 24-hour sample, which tends to be a auto sampler running for a full day that then gets averaged out. My analyte in this case, benzidine, goes in next column, and then it has an identifying number. Now, not every analyte will have one of these. It's more important for identification of toxics with complicated or unusual names. We don't rely on this super much. So if it's not super clear what that would be, it's okay to leave it blank. Your result value will go in here. You'll see in this case, it's what we call like a non-detect, and it's been marked as less than the detection limit. In this case, the reporting limit and the detection limit are the same. The detection limit will always be less than or equal to the reporting limit. The way I remember this is that you can detect things before you're sure that you can report them. So the reporting limit is a higher level of confidence. The unit is going to be milligrams per liter. That's, very common. For pH, maybe SU, a standard unit, would be more common. In this case, the lab has marked it with a qualifier of V3, which is not one of the standard ones that we use, but we're pretty used to interpreting these lab results. So just go ahead and give us whatever qualifier the lab has. It'll also be especially useful if there is a comment to go along with it. That can sometimes help us distinguish what the qualifier means. Maybe if it's one that's unusual or a format that we're not used to. Another common one would be a J flag, which would indicate that this result is in between the detection and reporting limit. But I'm going to go back to the V3. So I'm going to move the detection limit and reporting limits over. In some cases, you won't have all this data. We really like to see it all. If necessary, it can go in as NR for not reported. But that's not so much the case for this sort of toxics data. More likely for certain types of field data or, different laboratory qualifications, that sort of thing. The method can come straight off of whatever lab report you're using, or if it's a field measure, you will likely have an SOP that should list what method you're using. And then the laboratory name will be, whatever laboratory you're using, ALS, Nielsen. There's a lot of big ones. In my case, I'm saying, let's say this is a field measure. We did it at home, and if there isn't a lab other than you can go ahead and put like your facility's name there. Lab sample ID technically can be anything, but it really helps to match that to the lab report that you're given. That makes it much easier for you or us to compare these results to the PDF lab report that you've been given alongside. So that helps us match it up, and that helps it makes it easier to define what your samples are and not because you don't want repeating lab sample IDs. These need to be unique for each individual sampling event. So the last two are an analytical start date and time. We don't use this that much. The labs should provide it. If they don't, it's okay to leave it blank. Then finally, you have two comments. A result comment is essentially something that had to do with that specific sample that was ID'd, that was tested at the lab, whereas an activity comment may reflect more, the sample was not homogeneous, the weather that day caused some sort of problems that prevented us from getting a good sample, so forth. In this case, it's been really helpful to have the comment is related to that qualifier, the V3 here, so this will also should be listed in the lab report, is that V3 is defined as here, but it can be, it's really great for us to be able to see it all on the same row. Then I won't have any activity comments for this one, and then column X is something that you guys aren't going to be using to fill stuff out. So you're going to do that for all the samples that you have, just straight down the row. Each row will get its own thing, and so that's sort of what you have. Nicole, do you think there's anything else I should cover, or do you want to jump in and do your additional data?
Sure, I can jump in. I don't remember if you said it, but just in case folks didn't catch that. So when it's a non-detect, we really don't want to see ND in the results column. We want to see the less than is less than the detection or reporting limit. Sorry, it's less than the reporting limit. Right?
We get these a lot, and they need to be corrected to be less than the detection limit. Just non-detect isn't enough. Same thing with just 0, and that neither of those are accurate enough for our purposes. Thanks for that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, so I thought that was an important point. So I'm going to steal the screen and steal the spotlight for a second, and we're going to go over the pretreatment specific stuff. Now, what you just saw, that's using the template, the toxics template you can download from our external website with no changes. So the pretreatment annual report requires a little bit extra information that's not captured by the standard template. So I'm going to show you what that information is and how to incorporate it into this template spreadsheet. So I'm going to share my screen. So here we have the same, this is that same template that you will have downloaded and saved somewhere. And I first want to go quickly to the information that tells you what to do on Form 3 here. So all of this is basically what Carter just covered, including some specifics here. And this is what I'm going to cover: additional required information. So the important things to note here is add a new sheet to the end of the EDDU workbook and ensure results remains a 6th sheet. This part right here is really important. No matter what you do to the template, make sure that results is the 6th sheet. And here are the other additional information that we need. So personally, I have copied and pasted this into the spreadsheet so I can show you at the same time. But what you're going to do is when you get your template, you're going to click this little plus button down here to add a new sheet. And it's going to put it somewhere. So just make sure you move it to the end here. You can just drag and drop. And then you're going to create the sheet that contains all of this additional information that is required for the annual report. So you will have to create this sheet, from scratch by hand. There's no template for this, so be aware that IDQ will accept this additional information sheet in whatever form it comes, so long as it contains all of the relevant information. I've created a sheet already. I've named it pre-treatment. If you want to rename a sheet, you just right-click, rename, and then you can rename your sheet in case you weren't aware of that. But I've already created a sheet. So what I did is I copied. Yours does not have to look like this. Once again, this is not a template. This is just an example of how you could structure your sheet. So we need the treatment plant flow, influent, effluent at time of sampling, and the treatment plant removal rates for either each day of sampling or for each consecutive day sampling event. So what I've done is I've just come over here to my results and I've copied the formatting at the top, and then I've renamed 4 columns. I combined date and time in a column. You don't have to, but I have. Influent flow, I've used million gallons daily. You don't have to, but that's how I've done it. Effluent flow, and then my removal rate column. The other things that we need, the other additional information that we need are narrative. Specifically explain if there are any changes in the method of disposal of wastewater or sludge. You don't have to include these in the spreadsheet. You could actually attach a different document if you'd like. Personally, I chose to include them in the spreadsheet just because I thought that would be easier if I were in your shoes. But once again, that's not a requirement. So explain if there are any changes in the method of disposal. In my example, I've just said no changes. Provide a statement that all data were gathered and analyzed using approved test methods. I've said this with the little, I put my initials. Because this is going to be submitted through your DEQ online, it's less important that you sign here because your submission through YDO will be your electronic signature. So we will hold it to you, hold you to those words, even if you didn't wet signature sign it. And then include a discussion of all data anomalies, including cause and actions taken to prevent reoccurrence. You can see that I've actually failed on this one because I haven't included actions taken to prevent reoccurrence. So in this case, don't do what I did. Make sure you do answer the question fully. But what we want here are comments that are not captured elsewhere in the spreadsheet. So on your results tab, as Carter went through, you will have these results comment and activity comment. So if you've already put it in result or activity over here on the results tab, you don't have to put it over here in your new sheet. But if your comments have to do with the influent flow, effluent flow, and removal rate, there's not a place to put those in the results tab. So that's really what we want to see here in the in this new tab that you create. So the only other thing to discuss here is for your removal rate. If you're not familiar with this with Excel, you can hit the equal sign, go over to a different page, click on something, go back to yours, and it will take the value and put that into a formula. So you can still do your calculations even with your values on a different page. So you can still calculate that removal rate. One of the things I didn't do here explicitly, but might be important, is so on your results page, you have certain sample collection date, sample collection time. These actually go with those specific samples. So please ensure that there's some way of linking one to the other, as in be specific enough in your date and time where I can tell, or we can tell, which sample that goes with, and or use a unique identifier. You can add another column and you can say sample ID, for example. That's also completely fine if you want to do it like that. And then you have your sample ID here. Just something that lets me link the flows and removal rates to the specific samples on your results page. The reason we can't mess with this page is because this page is set up to automatically route into the water quality database. So if we mess with this page, we run the risk of messing with the automatic pulling of that data into our larger database. So that's why we have to have it over here. I think that's everything for me. So we're gonna start taking questions. And I think I had some in the chat already. What removal rate should you use? That's going to be calculated specifically on what sample it is. So you'll report removal rates for all of your for BOD, removal rates for TSS, etc. So you'll have a long list there. Do you want the removal rate of the concentration-based removal or load-based removal? I believe it's a percentage. It should say in your annual report instructions.
Hey, Nicole, did you, for that concentration-based removal or load-based removal, did you put the formula into your spreadsheet there?
I did not, no.
Oh, okay.
I just showed how to link to other pages.
Okay.
Is this format workable for the pretreatment? Yes, that is workable. Steve Meister? Is the comment?
City of Portland. Thank you.
Yeah. Is the comment column able to be resized to add any comments in the DEQ page without causing any upload issues? Which comment column, Nitin? Are you talking about on the results tab or on the tab that you create?
On the results tab. You said don't mess around with the actual DEQ Excel spreadsheet, but if you want to type in a long comment, is that okay to go ahead and resize that, and it's not going to cause any upload issues, right?
Yeah, I don't think the size of the column will affect the upload, but even if you don't change it, if you just type it, it'll go outside the comment box, but it will still be visible. Like it'll still be there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead and type as much as you want. Yeah.
Write a novel.
Yeah, write a novel if you need to. Better than nothing.
Please don't copy War and Peace.
All right, thanks.
I'm also looking for hands if anybody has a question and wants to raise their hand.
So question on the two info tabs. There's monitoring location info and results info. These are your data dictionaries. Do I need to have content in those two tabs, or can I just leave those two tabs? I am generating this. We're City of Portland. We're generating this out of a database. So we've got a SQL Server database, and we're generating this
Got
format.
it. Yeah.
And having to retype all that data dictionary info is,
Yeah.
you know.
No. So the way our data upload works is that we do look at the 6th tab. So if you just put 2 blank tabs for monitoring location and results, monitoring location info and results info, that'll solve any problem on our side, if that makes
Cool.
sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
We are going to email out. We haven't exactly figured out how the recording is going to be posted. I believe that Nicole is going to send out the transcript relatively soon. I still need to figure out exactly what accessibility stuff I need to do to make sure we can post it publicly and edit out the chit chat we had at the beginning. But I think you'll get a mass email explaining where you can access the recording. Yeah, great. That also reminds me is this is going to change a little bit to make it more accessible to meet DEQ's new standards around accessibility. That won't change any functionality. It'll just be a little bit easier if you're using like a screen reader to have it read to you properly. But that won't change the way that anything's filled out or any of the columns are res.
Okay. Carissa.
Hi, Nicole. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Would you mind sharing your screen again with the additional data item? It'll make most sense with my question. Okay. So what I'm understanding is that so you're pulling the removal rate for each sample that you have on the other results page. So for example, like copper, I'm going to have, for 3 days, I'm going to have that. So you want this like represented for like 3 data points, or do you want them averaged? And then like I have a QA/QC day that's on my middle day. So normally I average my middle day's data, but I just want to make sure that what you want on this page is what, we give you the right options or data. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Since it's posted in the chat, I almost want to refer to Portland's. Is this format workable? That's pretty much that's very much what we'd like to see. Or you have the influent flow, effluent flow, and then you have a calculated percent removal. Portland also has the headworks and outfall concentration next to each other with the percent removal. That's not necessary, but that's that.
I get that, but how are they doing like their 3 days of like consecutive sampling? Because they only have one data point for arsenic.
So okay. So the screenshot I posted was just 1 day's worth, but yeah, the full sheet has all 3 days. So we do 4 sampling events where we do a sample every day for 3 days, and we do 4 of those throughout the year. And so all 12 of those days get reported. It is what I've been doing, and I thought it said that somewhere that in the guidance document, I thought it said that you did not want averages, you wanted the individual day. I was trying to pull up that Nicole, you had the
I think it's this one right here. The either each day of sampling or each consecutive day sampling event.
That's what I was using.
Okay, so all individual days.
Yeah, individual days. I've always thought about it as anytime you could calculate removal rate, you should calculate removal rate. Like if you have the paired influent, effluent, and sample data to do a removal rate, we'd like to see that. But that's just my. This is the requirement, and that is what I've mostly been seeing people do.
that works. Just so I just wanted to make sure everything's defined correctly. So thank you.
Chris.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for giving that presentation. I think there should be, if I'm right, 2 sample data points to calculate removal rate. There'd be the headworks and then the effluent concentrations with those flows. So which of those 2 should we add for the sample ID? The effluent sample ID, because there'll be like an arsenic concentration for the influent and an arsenic concentration for the effluent. 2 different samples.
Honestly, whichever one you want, just something
Either
that lets
one.
me tie this removal rate to that set of samples.
Okay, cool.
I put the sample ID in there just now, just because I was like, this could be helpful. But previously I was like, oh, I'll link it because it'll be the exact date and time.
Okay.
But if you have
Either one.
If that's complicated, if that won't
No.
make it specific enough, add a sample ID. You can make up a unique one,
Okay.
even. But
Thanks. No, that helps. Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, was that.
Medford, this is specifically for the for this pretreatment tab, right? Robert, that's just for the effluent flow, and removal rate. Okay. Yeah, that's fine too. As I said, so long as the information is there. Do remember that there's these narrative ones too. They don't have to be submitted with the spreadsheet, but they do need to be included. Yeah, Julie, I was going to put the formula for removal rate into my cells, and that got a little bit too complicated for the amount of time that I had to build this. And I know that seems unfair because you guys are going to have to do that, but I apologize. Given more time, I would have gotten you a removal rate formula there.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for this formula in the chat.
I apologize for not having it ready. I think I started and then I checked my time and I was like, I'm gonna have to let the pretreatment subcommittee group work on that one. Any other questions that I can help answer or that Carter can help answer? Okay, seeing none, I think that's it. We'll close out the meeting and the recording. I don't know if Matt
I guess
Siebel...
if you have further questions, send them to Nicole, and then if they're for me, they can be redirected, and we're happy to do any specific one-on-one stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get started on us and then decide you don't have any questions. Or do.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're more than happy, and we'll make ourselves available for these questions. And we'll send out this recording too. No problem, folks. Thanks for coming. Thanks for attending, and I hope hopefully it was helpful. And we'll see you later.
All right. Take care, folks.